Moving next, we will open public hearing on House Bill 1865. Cece, would you please brief us on this bill?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Cece Clinch, speaking to House Bill 1865. Every school district has the duty to provide for and require screening for the visual and auditory acuity of all children attending district schools. This statute gives to the Board of Health with OSPI to serve with recommendations. The Board of Health is given the authority to adopt rules regarding the procedures and standards for this testing and screening. The BOH rules are set forth in detail in the bill analysis before you, and I won't go into great detail there, but generally speaking, the routine screening that is provided for in rule is screening related to distance vision and not near vision. In kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, there is routine screening for distance vision. There are additional provisions regarding situations in which school personnel observe a child with signs of vision problems. In that case, they are to notify a parent or guardian, but there aren't any rules with respect to the near vision acuity routine screening. This bill would require that every school board of directors provide for and require screening for both distance and near visual acuity, and there is a fiscal note in your packet.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, we welcome the prime sponsor, Representative Mogendans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Chad Mogendans, representing the 5th Legislative District. As many of you, like me, are discovering, distance vision isn't everything. And I'm printing my notes out bigger and bigger as the years go by. But I'm not alone in that. This is also a problem for children in our schools. Solely screening for distance vision misses up to 40% of children with potential vision problems. And these are pretty significant problems. I mean, farsightedness being the obvious one, but binocular disorders like lazy eye and astigmatism are also completely missed. It's also an equity issue, too. If you look at the high poverty areas, they typically get less visual care. In fact, a study was showing that in lower economic areas, they were failing screening with a ratio of 38% versus 24% for the general population. A few stats. 25% of students can't read due to visual issues, 66% of illiterate adults, 70% of juvenile delinquents, and 90% of prison inmates can't read due to visual problems. Overall, this is costing our nation a huge amount of money. In fact, the National Institute for Literacy estimates that it's costing us $60 billion per year. So at this point, I'd cede my remaining time to remaining testimony or answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the prime sponsor? Seeing none, we thank you very much. And Vice Chair Ortiz Self will call the panel forward. There are 4 seats, so I will ask that she call all 6 people forward. And if you've found yourself in front of a seat, I'll ask you to please begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call up Jenna Jones, Katie Johnson, Kathy Lambert, and Edward Jones, Brad Tower, Joanna Hawes.
Please begin.
Chair Santos, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jenna Jones, and I have a yellow light already. Thank you. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the League of Education Voters and actually with my experience as a classroom teacher. We are in strong support of this bill. I feel like it's my bill, even though I had nothing to do with this bill, because since 2007, I have been asking school nurses, counselors, school districts, even different states, why we can't check to see if our kids can see their textbooks. In 2007, I realized for the first time that one of my students was 3 years below academic level simply because he couldn't see. Why didn't the teachers catch this beforehand? Well, because we do our vision screenings, and there's a lot of different reasons why a student can not be up to academic benchmarks. I was teaching in a school with the highest ELL population. I was also teaching in a school with a very high free and reduced lunch rate, which often means that students go to multiple schools and have learning loss. Why didn't the parents know that the student couldn't read? Well, the parents get little half sheets sent home in the fall saying there's a checkbox for reading and a checkbox for hearing, and the student looks like he's A-okay, but they don't understand that it's only vision that's tested. And then that very responsible parent takes the student to the pediatrician's office, and that pediatrician prints out a report that shows that it's within normal range for vision and hearing, except the parent may not know that the vision is only distance. So the only opportunity would be if they went to an eye doctor, which doesn't happen very often. So the schools need to check and see. This is an opportunity gap issue, and most importantly, it's a massive struggle for these students. It's years of wasted learning. So please close this gap today and help every student have the opportunity to learn in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
My name is Katie Johnson, and I have taught first grade for about 100 years, now retired. And my message is identical to this. Children do not read at 20 feet away. We screen them every year blithely with the Snellen chart, and also in terms of the law, we screen them that way. But many, many of them, in fact, probably 25% of the students that I work with, have worked with, still work with, because I'm a volunteer now, can't read what they're supposed to be reading, even Frog and Toad now, really. For example, Alexandra, who is now 23, couldn't read anything in second grade, and she didn't know why, and I didn't know why. One day I said to her, Alexandra, what are the words doing when you are trying to read? And she said, well, they move toward the center of the book, and some of them are black and some of them are lighter, and then they fall off the edge of the page. I said, She said, don't they do that when you read? So that's where we have been, the result of screening only for 20 feet away. Who cares? Children cannot read at 20 feet away. And over the years, whenever anybody has mentioned this to teachers or to parents, that in fact, distance and near are not the same thing, they say, oh, I never thought of that. So I wrote 2 books about this, and I have some copies if anybody wants one, for teachers and incidentally parental units as well. And I believe that it is, as you say, totally a fairness thing. Children do not read at 20 feet away. Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and see you again. My name is Kathy Lambert. I'm a King County Council member and a former school teacher and a former member of this body. And this is an issue that I have had passion about for many, many years. I was a school teacher, and I began to see that teaching the low kids, I would watch them when they would start to read and they would go like this. And pretty soon their eyes would begin to water. And I realized that they weren't doing this because they were bored, never in my class, was that they were readjusting their eyes. And I realized something was wrong with that and started sending them out to get eye exams, and they all came back with glasses. Principal used to say to me, I can never tell who's in the 5th grade class until January. All the ones with glasses are in your class, it's easy. And from January to June, I could get them up on grade level. Many, many of these kids were in remediation. And so the remediation teachers who usually come to me about March and say, I don't know what's going on in your class, but something's going on, and send extra help in because she wanted to be part of seeing these kids move out of remediation. As you know, as members of the Education Committee, remediation classes are more expensive. And so to be able to move the kids back into the mainstream was really, really important. So I think for their self-esteem, for the correlation of this with kids dropping out and with kids ending up in the criminal justice system. Felt passionately about this when I was on King County Council and had a 3-year pilot done by the wonderful doctor right here. And we found out that 80% of the kids in the King County Jail do not see properly. That is not an accident. It fills right in with the national statistics. So those children were in somebody else's school the day before they ended up in mine. And I really don't want them ending up in mine. I'd like them to be successful out working on your farms and graduating and being able to do wonderful things. So I think it was great in 1932 that we checked the blackboards, but there aren't blackboards in many classrooms anymore. They're now whiteboards and they're now computers. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Edward Lawrence Jones. I'm I've been practicing 30 years in the Olympia, Seattle, greater area. I'm an optometrist and hearing instrument specialist. I'm on the board for the National Optometric Association, also the West Coast trustee, and I'm a member of the Washington Optometric Association and also the American Optometric Association. Between 2005 and 2008, I examined approximately 300 children from ages 12 to 18 at the King County Juvenile Detention Center. And it was part of a study conducted and spearheaded by Councilmember Lambert. What we found out that 80% of the children, like she said earlier, basically were farsighted, had astigmatism, and had other eye movement problems, but they were fixable and detectable. And what we found that at least 73% of those children, glasses would have helped them immediately at that point in time. And so what we look for right now is 80% of the information coming through children's mind, their eyes, as they're growing up is how they learn. And so as we know right now, we are in an analog still age instead of a digital age in the way we test. We need to move into a digital age because our children are in a digital age. So we need to get rid of the analog, looking at the chalkboard like she said. So basically right now, I printed up some vision charts for you. If you can see the bottom line on those, how many of you can? One. Okay, two. We got three. Okay. So you see the problem here. You know, House Bill 1865 should pass. I challenge you to look at it. I've seen the positive results of glasses after I've given them to children. The parents come in and they say, my children's attitudes changed. Everything's gone up, their grades. It's amazing when you live that every day. I get the accolades and the awesome feeling of doing that with kids, and I see so many kids that are passed through. So thank you for passing this bill for our children of Washington. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
I'm Joanna Haas, and I'm actually a pediatric specialist in optometry here in Thurston County. I practice in Lacey, and I cry when I talk passionately, so hopefully I won't. I am also a patient. I started wearing glasses when I was 2, and in undergraduate ended up seeing double for 7 years. And so through auditory books and vision therapy and then ultimately eye surgery, I ended up with eyes that are straight and eyes that are able to read a lot better than they were in the midst of all of my academic successes and struggles. I see every day as a pediatric eye doctor that these things, same things that have been testified for, things where these parents come in and they say, I say to them, how are you doing with, how's this child doing with their reading? And they say, well, they're a grade level behind, but it's not his eyes, and I say to them, well, thank you for taking my education away from me, but really, I'm sorry, but really they don't know. And it's again what one of the other testimonies said, which is they receive that pass and they know that they see well at the distance, but they have no idea what's going on up close. So as has been said before, astigmatism, farsightedness, strabismus, a lot of different conditions cannot be found with distance-only testing. I feel ultimately that a comprehensive eye exam, personally, I feel that a comprehensive eye exam would be very beneficial for every child entering school. But short of mandating that exam, I do feel that our distance-only tests are just too far behind and they don't test enough and they're leaving too many children behind undiagnosed.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Brad Tower here today on behalf of the Optometric Physicians of Washington, very much in support of this legislation, just as we were in support of this legislation 12 years ago when it was also before this committee. Just as a professional, I won't take up the committee's time, but I would comment to you that since that time, the Affordable Care Act has passed, and vision exams for children under 18 are now part of the essential health benefits. And so these comprehensive exams, the coverage for the actual detection and correction of this, should be available to every child in this state. And if they are not, we have volunteer programs for that as well. So catching these in the school would be fantastic, and the concern about correcting them should be addressed at this point because of our health care reform. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ortiz Self.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Those signing in and not wishing to testify, but in favor of the bill includes Cliff Webster, Washington Academy of Eye Physicians and Surgeons, Abby Moore from King County, Jerry Bender, Association of School Principals, Annie Lee, Team Child, Stu Jacobson, Parents for Safe Child. Oh, and that's it.
And that closes public hearing on House Bill 1865.